Not all those who wander are lost. J.R. Tolkien. Welcome to Aegis Travel Adventures. We are Ken
and Gisele. We have been to over 100 countries and are still looking to see what is around the next corner. We love wine,
travel, and adventure. Listen to our podcast where we share the fun of the magical places, people, and cultures that have touched our lives.
Aegis,
Travel,
Adventures.
Hello, this is Ken
and Gisele
from Aegis Travel Adventures, Episode 8. Today we'd like to talk about our last cruise ship stop, and it was an interesting place that I haven't been to before, commonly called Cape Verde Islands or Cabo Verde, and they have now officially changed the name to Republic of Cabo Verde. The islands, there's 10 islands, they're all volcanic. They were uninhabited till the 15th century when the Portuguese explorers discovered them. We went to one of the 10 islands, Sao Vicente, and the city was Mindelo.
We went there because we were diverted, or I should say, they canceled our trip to
Dakar, Senegal,
because they were having a bunch of unrest, and so so we went there, and it was fine. I mean, I think what do you think, Ken?
A lot of people think that it's a vacation stop, tourist destination that's waiting to find its own, is the best way to say it. And that could be. We only went to one island, but the water there was incredibly clear and blue. One of the groups that went out privately that we've been talking to, they went and did a snorkel with the sea turtles, and they said they were giant ones and they were all around. I do believe that it is a snorkeler diver paradise, particularly because of all the volcanic and the formations they had, but the water was just crystal clear. To give you a point of reference where it is, it's approximately, because of the 10 islands, 500 miles off the westernmost point of continental Africa. So it's quite a ways out in the middle of the North Atlantic.
Now, we were there on Sunday, so it was not much going on. And again, the cruise line Viking, I thought they did a really good job, or at least they, to kind of reshuffle the shore excursion. And I think we've mentioned this before, that on Viking, every port you go to, you get a quote included excursion. So they didn't just pull up to the dock and went, see ya. So they went and they found a bunch of drivers who obviously they didn't speak any English, or if they did, it was very minimal. And you went in, quote, 4x4s, more like Jeeps. And you went up toward the island, basically driving around the island. You went to the highest point and looked down. I mean, it was lovely. It was, it was, like Ken said, I think it's a destination that in a couple years from now, it may not look like anything that we visited. And had we not been there on Sunday, we might have noticed, we might have enjoyed it more, got more of the local flavor. Literally everything was closed except a few grocery stores and one little tchotchke, cute little shop that we went into, and the woman spoke no English, or if she did, she chose not to speak English, whatever. And so I bought a shell kind of bracelety thing, and it was fine. I mean, they had some interesting things. It was enjoyable, but it's definitely a country that poverty is still pretty much prevalent, and in the areas that we went to, numerous people came up and asked for money. Can you buy me something at the grocery store, etc. Again, they don't get that many tourists, but that day there was actually 3 cruise ships in there, so they must be getting some. So I think they're getting more and more used to the idea of tourism, and with that comes the goods and the bads, and things that make tourism great, and there's things that make it not so great. So anyway, so we enjoyed that.
The islands are very arid. There's not forests per se. There's a lot of more cactus type vegetation, low brush. It's very volcanic. You can see the volcanic clastic flows polyclastic, where the rocks are hardened, but they look like flows, and they've hardened in place, and there's no vegetation on a lot of that. Again, to me, the beauty of it is the mountains and the formations, and then the water.
And so that's it. Then we're on our third sea day. Tomorrow we'll be in the infamous town of Casa Blanca, which Ken is excited Morocco. I'm excited to go back to, having been there way back in the day. Rick's Cafe was actually there when he was there. I'm kidding. We're going to do that, and there's a couple markets. Again, it's one of those places that they're advising us that you are to be vigilant when you go out. Watch your purse. Don't wear jewelry. All the standard stuff when you go to sometimes of these countries.
It's also Islamic, and although there's a lot of Western tourists, you need to dress appropriately, and there is some beautiful mosque and things. If you want to get in, you have to dress the way they want you.
There's supposed to be a really gorgeous mosque there that we're not going to do, because again, we have been to several mosques, and I read online, there's some really cool little markets that are still non quite as touristy as others. I'm sure most of them are these days. You're not going to find something that's going to be, quote, authentic, but it's something they said that some of them, they've got some nice arts and crafts, and just kind of get the local flavor, the spices and the smells and all that kind of good stuff. And if we indeed can find time, we may have to go to Rick's Cafe. There is a Rick's Cafe there. However, it is a fabricated, if you know the movie Casablanca, none of it was real. I mean, it was just a good story with Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman. But there's so many people that came into Casablanca looking to find Rick's Cafe that from what I read is that the city, the government said, you know what, we need to put up one. So there's a replica there that it looks just like the cafe, and you go there and get a drink, and yeah, it's very cute. We've not seen it, but anyway, so that's kind of our plans for tomorrow. Then we have
and we'll give you a recap on how everything goes on the next podcast.
And then after that, the next day we go to
Malaga, Spain,
and then we have one more sea day after that, and then we are out of here, as the saying goes. We'll spend 2 days, one day on the ship in Barcelona, and then we're off to our next port of call, which is going to be the
Ibiza, the island of Ibiza in the Balearics, and it's the old 70s hippie hangout, supposedly. So never been there, and it's beautiful beaches, and it's side island that's really small is called Formentara, and we're going to spend a couple days there as well.
So we're going to just chill and hang out and be leftover hippies for a while. At least some of us are. And so that's kind of it for the cruising aspect of our podcast for this today. But now we'll get into, quote, the tips of the day. And my tip of the day is kind of continuing on about being prepared when you travel. And one thing that we have discovered, that when you travel, some people do a carry-on, some people carry backpacks. Ken and I have found that for us, we like each carrying a backpack. It's a decent sized backpack, so you can put, quote, your essentials in there. And also I will say that if we go on some trips, we've been known to do our backpacks and a carry-on. It just depends on where we're going and what we need. But in our carry-ons or backpacks, we try to carry the things that we can't live without. For me, it's my AirPods and my iPad, and Ken has his iPad and some books, or whatever. And also, when I talked earlier about your medicines, one thing that is crucial, that when you travel, if things that you cannot live without, things that besides your AirPods or your iPhone, that you're going to need your drugs, it's imperative that you do not put them in your suitcase. Your prescription drugs. Because one, again, if it gets lost, then you really don't have any recourse. So be sure to carry the drugs that you need to make your life easier, that you need to take on a daily basis, or anything else that you need. I also carry with me in there, as I carry a little mini, like a little bit of makeup, maybe some mouthwash, some toothpaste, some toothbrush, little throwaway ones if I need to, so that if I, in the middle of the airport, we're there for a long stay, I can freshen up a little bit and not feel like I'm so I guess tired of being in an airplane. The other thing is that you may want to consider is packing some extra undies or underwear or a t-shirt or whatever that you do in case your luggage does get lost or you don't get your luggage when you get to your place.
Or a flight delay where your luggage is still in the baggage handler's
So
hands.
by having some sort of clothing or some sort of whatever you decide how much you want to bring, then you feel like you're a little bit not so, you have some options. Side note, when we went to the Galapagos, our luggage, I think we've said this before, got delayed and we had nothing with us.
For 2 days.
We had nothing. So thus we try to balance it out. Maybe not as much as probably I should have at times, but again, I don't want to keep carrying tons of stuff with me. So we each carry a set of undies, maybe a t-shirt or a shirt to put on in case something changes, so that you have some ability to be a little more fresher when you travel. So that's my tip of the day, is remember to carry your essentials with you on a backpack, and also remember when you're leaving the airplane to make sure that if you stored your backpack in the overhead, if it wasn't zipped, to make sure that it is zipped, because we've heard a couple stories, and it has probably happened to us, that it is not zipped, or at least, let me rephrase it, happened to me, because I'm notorious for not zipping up things. So then that way you have just somebody check it to make sure it's zipped when you put it in the overhead bin. So that's my tip of the day.
And the other thing with that is, as far as people picking through carry-on luggage, it's not very common, but it does happen. So if you have valuables in a backpack or a hand carry, just putting a simple zip tie, a twisty tie, on the zipper. Usually there's two of them. You put them together, put a zip tie through it, just roll it up, twisty tie. It just makes it hard for somebody to get into. They're not likely to spend the effort then. So, people carry money. We found a lot of places we go, we need American dollars. We just went to Argentina, and nobody wants Argentina pesos. They want American dollars, and in fact, if you have American dollars, you get a super discount on everything. So we brought dollars. I don't want to be on a plane for 10 hours, fall asleep, and wake up and my money's gone. So I know you can stick it under the seat in front of you, but a lot of people need the leg room, so they put it overhead. So a little twisty tie can, make it safer. Or if you want to go even further, I buy a little cheap lock. I bought one in Africa to put on our backpack when we left for the day because we didn't have safes. It's just an extra precaution.
Yes, we know they could have taken the backpack.
Yeah.
We realize that, but usually the hotels, the people that work there are generally very conscientious and courteous, and they want their, they enjoy their jobs, or at least their jobs are a necessity. But you do get the every now and then person that, whatever. So those are just some little tips and regarding safety and making sure when you travel things are a little bit easier.
And precautions, are a good thing. And there can be a payoff, but certainly having something happen is never good. My tip of the day, we've been on a couple cruises this year, late last year, and we haven't worn masks, and we haven't gotten sick, other than a tummy issue here or there. And our doctor has recommended that we carry Cipro when we go to some of these third world countries, and if we start to feel any gastro stuff, we will take a Cipro pretty quick. We don't wait around very long, and it's kept us going very well. But on this cruise in Viking, we have a lot of older guests, I guess to say it lightly, and there's a lot of people here wearing masks. I wouldn't say a lot, but there's quite a few that are wearing masks. But there's still a lot of people sniffing and snorting, and there's been a couple we talked to that spent 5 days in their cabin because they had COVID and they weren't allowed to leave. So my recommendation is put a mask in your pocket, or you're carrying whatever you have on you, purse, and carry it around. And if you get into a crowded theater or a group, that, people are coughing, speaking of, or, wheezing and you feel a little uncomfortable, just pull your mask out and put it on. It just ruins your vacation to be, even with a cold or a minor flu. It's not a lot of fun to spend a couple days not feeling well, and it's happened to me this trip, unfortunately, and Gisele to a lesser degree, but I will keep my mask in my pocket heretofore. So that's my tip of the day.
One thing Ken was talking about masks and stuff around the ship. Before on cruises, when COVID hit and all this stuff was going on, somebody on the ship would get COVID, and everybody would go into a panic, or the ship would go into a panic, and you'd get notices in your stateroom. Oh my God, somebody's gotten COVID, blah blah blah. And I thought it was really kind of funny when we were talking to the couple, and he was like, "Yeah, I got COVID," and I was in my room for 5 days, and I asked his wife. I said, "Well, were you in the room?" She's like, "Nah." So it definitely shows the lax, that sounds like a negative term, but just the ease at which, or the lessening of the restrictions regarding COVID. So I'm sure they weren't the only people on the ship that got COVID, but they're the only ones that we talked to that we heard about it. So it was just kind of different as opposed to other ships where, it was a big deal about a year ago. So anyway, so those are our tips, and that's where we're at.
This next trip you're on may be the trip of your life, or it may be a vacation. But regardless, getting COVID, a cold, the flu, or anything that gives you downtime is not how you want to spend that time. So that's our podcast for today, our tips, and have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Aegis,
Exloring.
travel,
Senegal.
adventures.
Adventure.